The gallery was quiet that night, the kind of quiet that settles over expensive things when no one's around to appreciate them. I stood alone in the contemporary wing, my heels clicking softly against marble as I made my final rounds. Security guard on break, curator gone home. Just me, the art, and the city lights bleeding through floor-to-ceiling windows. I should have heard him coming, but I didn't. One moment I was adjusting the placard beneath a Rothko, and the next I felt him, a presence so commanding it made the air shift. I turned slowly, my breath catching before I even saw his face. He stood 15 feet away, hands in the pockets of a black suit that probably cost more than my yearly salary. Tall, broad-shouldered. The kind of man who didn't need to announce his power because it radiated from him, like heat from asphalt in summer. Dark hair swept back from a face that was all sharp angles and harder edges, except for his eyes. God, his eyes. They were fixed on me with an intensity that made my skin prickle. Not predatory exactly, something else, something that felt like recognition, though we'd never met. "We're closed," I said, proud that my voice came out steady. "The last tour ended 2 hours ago." He didn't move, didn't blink, just kept staring at me like I was one of the paintings, something to be studied, decoded, understood. "You smell like Jasmine," he said finally, his voice low and rough, textured like expensive whiskey, the kind that burns going down. My hand instinctively went to my wrist, where I'd dabbed my perfume that morning. What?" He took a step closer, then another, each movement deliberate, controlled. My dead wife's favorite scent. Another step. She wore it every day for 5 years. His jaw tightened, a muscle jumping beneath tanned skin. "So I'll ask you once, and I suggest you answer truthfully." He was close enough now that I could see the flecks of gold in his dark eyes, close enough that I could smell cedar and gunpowder and something dangerous I couldn't name. "Who are you, really?" My heart hammered against my ribs. My name is Vera Mitchell. I work here. I'm nobody." "Nobody," he repeated, tasting the word like it was a lie. He circled me slowly, and every instinct I had screamed at me to run. But my feet might as well have been bolted to the floor. "Nobody wears Jasmine de Nuit. It's discontinued. Has been for 3 years. Cost $2,000 a bottle on the black market." How did he know the name of my perfume? How did he know what it cost? "It was a gift," I whispered. "From my grandmother before she died. I didn't know it was from your grandmother." He stopped in front of me again, so close I could feel the heat radiating off his body. "And where did your grandmother get it?" "I don't know." I was 18. I didn't ask questions about perfume. His eyes searched mine, looking for deception, for cracks in my story. I didn't understand what was happening, didn't understand why this man, this beautiful, terrifying man, was interrogating me about perfume in an empty art gallery. "Please," I said, and I hated how small my voice sounded. "I don't know what you want, but I'm telling you the truth. I'm nobody, just a girl who works here." "You're not nobody, Vera." The way he said my name made it sound like a secret, like something precious and dangerous all at once. Not to me, not anymore. Before I could ask what he meant, before I could do anything but stand there drowning in confusion and a fear I didn't quite understand, the gallery doors burst open. 3 men in dark suits flooded in, and I knew, without knowing how I knew, that they belonged to him. One of them stepped forward, his expression urgent. "Sir, we need to move." Giovanni's men were spotted 2 blocks away. The man in front of me, the one who'd somehow turned my world sideways in the span of 5 minutes, didn't look away from me, didn't even acknowledge that someone had spoken. "What's your address, Vera?" "What? No, I'm not—" "Your address. Not a request. A command wrapped in velvet threat. Because in approximately 10 minutes, some very bad men are going to run your name, find out where you live, and wonder why their enemy was seen talking to you in an empty gallery at midnight." He leaned in, his lips close to my ear, his breath warm against my skin. "So I'll ask one more time. What's your address?" I told him. "God help me," I told him. And as he stepped back, as his men flanked him and they moved toward the exit like shadows, he looked over his shoulder one last time. "Lock the doors behind us. Don't go home tonight, And Vera? Something that might have been regret flickered across his face. I'm sorry. Then they were gone, and I was alone with the art and the silence and the jasmine perfume that had just destroyed my life. I didn't go home. I should have. I should have locked those gallery doors, called the police, and pretended the entire encounter was some fever dream brought on by too much coffee and too little sleep. But something in his voice, that rough edge of genuine regret, kept me frozen in place long after his footsteps faded. Don't go home tonight. Why? What did he know that I didn't? I pulled out my phone with shaking hands, my thumb hovering over my landlord's number, my best friend's number, 911. But what would I even say? A dangerously beautiful man asked about my perfume and told me not to go home? They'd think I was insane. Maybe I was. I grabbed my coat and purse, my mind racing as I locked up the gallery. The street outside was empty, slick with recent rain that made the city lights reflect like oil paintings on wet pavement. My car was parked 2 blocks away. Suddenly, 2 blocks felt like 2 miles. The walk was the longest of my life. Every shadow became a threat. Every footstep that wasn't mine made my heart lurch. I'd lived in this city for 6 years, walked these streets hundreds of times. But tonight they felt foreign, hostile. Like the man in the gallery had peeled back some invisible curtain and shown me the real world lurking beneath. I made it to my car, fumbled with my keys, slid inside and locked the doors. Breathe, Vera. Just breathe. I drove to the only place I could think of, a 24-hour diner on the edge of downtown, where I'd pulled all-nighters during grad school. Somewhere public, somewhere safe, somewhere that wasn't the apartment he now knew the address to. The diner was nearly empty. Just a tired waitress, a trucker nursing black coffee, and me sliding into a corner booth with sightlines to both exits. Old habits from a childhood I tried not to think about. I ordered coffee I wouldn't drink and tried to make sense of the impossible. You smell like Jasmine, my dead wife's favorite scent. His wife. Dead. And I wore her perfume. What were the odds? What kind of sick cosmic joke was this? I pulled up Google on my phone, my fingers trembling as I typed, Jasmine de Nuit discontinued perfume Mafia, nothing useful. Fashion blogs, auction sites, I tried again. Mafia boss dead wife, too many results. Too vague. I was about to give up when the diner door opened. My blood turned to ice. It wasn't him. It was one of his men, the one who'd delivered the warning about Giovanni's men. He spotted me immediately, like he'd known exactly where I'd be, and walked over with the casual confidence of someone who'd never been told no in his life. Miss Mitchell. He slid into the booth across from me without invitation. Up close, he was older than I'd thought. 40, maybe. Silver threading through dark hair. A scar cutting through his left eyebrow. I'm Marco. Mr. Dante sent me. Mr. Dante. I repeated numbly. So that was his name. Dante. It fit him. Dark and literary and dangerous. He wants you to come with me. Absolutely not. I was surprised by the force in my own voice. I don't know who he is or what he wants, but I'm not going anywhere with... Marco's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, then turned the screen toward me. It was a photo of my apartment building. Or what was left of it, fire trucks, police cars, smoke billowing from a 3rd-floor window. My floor. My apartment. Gas leak, Marco said quietly, pocketing his phone. At least that's what the fire marshal will conclude. Faulty stove. Tragic accident. His eyes met mine, and they weren't unkind. Just tired. You have 2 choices, Miss Mitchell. Come with me to somewhere safe, or take your chances that whoever did this doesn't know about this diner. The coffee in my stomach turned to acid. Why? Why is this happening? I don't know anything. I'm not involved in whatever world you people live in. You weren't, Marco agreed. Until you wore the wrong perfume on the wrong night and caught the attention of the wrong man. He stood, buttoning his jacket. Or the right man, depending on how you look at it. Because if Mr. Dante hadn't been at that gallery tonight, if he hadn't warned you... He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. I'd be dead. The thought hit me like a physical blow. Someone had tried to kill me. Someone had burned down my apartment, destroyed everything I owned, all because a man I didn't know had spoken to me for 5 minutes. This is insane, I whispered. Yes, Marco said simply. But it's also your reality now, so are you coming? The car was a black SUV with tinted windows and leather seats that probably cost more than my destroyed furniture. Marco drove in silence while I sat in the back, my mind a chaos of fear and disbelief, and a strange detached calm that felt like shock. We left the city behind, drove through suburbs that gave way to countryside, then turned down a private road lined with trees that seemed to swallow the moonlight. And then I saw it. The estate rose from the darkness like something from another world. Stone and glass and architectural ambition, all sharp angles and impossible beauty. Lights glowed from a dozen windows. A fountain dominated the circular drive. This wasn't a house. This was a fortress. Marco pulled up to the entrance where two more men in dark suits stood guard. The doors opened before we reached them. And there he was. Dante. Standing in the entrance hall beneath a chandelier that cast shadows across his face, making him look like something carved from marble and violence. He'd removed his jacket, rolled his sleeves to reveal forearms corded with muscle and ink, tattoos I couldn't make out from this distance. His eyes found mine across 20 feet of imported Italian marble. "Welcome to your new home, Vera," he said, his voice echoing in the cavernous space. "For however long it takes to keep you alive." I didn't move from the doorway. Couldn't move, really. My legs had turned to water somewhere between seeing my burned apartment on Marco's phone and standing in the entrance of what could only be described as a palace built on blood money. "I want to go to the police," I said, and my voice echoed in the vast space between us. Dante's expression didn't change. "No, you don't. Yes, I do. Someone tried to kill me. That's what police are for. Protection. Justice. Things that don't involve—" I gestured wildly at the opulence surrounding us, at the armed men I could see positioned strategically throughout the house, whatever this is. "The police can't protect you from the Giovannis." He said it like he was explaining basic math to a child. "They can't even protect themselves from the Giovannis. Then I'll leave the city. Change my name. Disappear. They'll find you." He moved closer, each step measured and deliberate. "They're already looking. Right now, as we speak, Giovanni has men running your face through every database they can access. Your social media, your employment records, your college transcripts. By morning, they'll know everything about you. Your mother's maiden name, your childhood address, the coffee shop you visit every Tuesday." My breath caught. "How do you—" "Because I've already done the same thing." He stopped a few feet away, close enough that I could see the exhaustion bruising the skin beneath his eyes. "I know you graduated summa cum laude from Columbia with a degree in art history. I know your parents died in a car accident when you were 16. I know you have $23,000 in student debt and you volunteer at a youth center every other Saturday." The invasion felt like a violation, like he'd reached inside my life and rifled through everything I was. "You had no right—" "I had every right." His voice turned sharp, dangerous. "The moment you became a target in a war you don't understand, you became my responsibility. So yes, Vera, I invaded your privacy. I learned everything I could about you in the 3 hours since I left that gallery, because that's what keeps you alive. I never asked for your protection." "No," he agreed, something like sorrow flickering across his face. "You asked for nothing. You were simply in the wrong place at the wrong time, wearing the wrong perfume." He turned away, running a hand through his hair in a gesture so human it startled me. "Story of your life, apparently." The comment hit too close to home. My parents' accident, my grandmother's death 6 months later. Always in the wrong place. Always losing people. Why, Jasmine? I asked quietly. "Why does my perfume matter so much?" His shoulders tensed. For a long moment, he didn't answer. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. "My wife, Isabel, commissioned that perfume. Had it made specifically for her in Paris. Only 20 bottles were ever created." He turned back to face me, and the raw pain in his eyes made my chest ache. 19 of them burned in the fire that killed her. The 20th was buried with her. So when you walked into my line of sight tonight smelling exactly like her— He stopped, his jaw clenching. I thought I was losing my mind. Oh God. The Giovannis, I breathed. They killed her. They planted the bomb that burned down our home, yes. His voice had gone flat, empty. 2 years ago. I've spent every day since then systematically destroying their organization piece by piece. I'm close now, so close to ending the family that took her from me. And then you appear wearing her scent, and suddenly they have new leverage. I'm not leverage. I'm nobody to you. That's not true anymore. He closed the distance between us, and I should have stepped back, should have maintained space. But I couldn't move. The moment Giovanni's men saw me speak to you, the moment they ran your plates and found your apartment, you became somebody. You became the woman Dante Moretti was seen with, the woman he warned, the woman he protected. This is insane, I whispered. Yes. He reached out slowly, giving me time to pull away. When I didn't, his fingers brushed my wrist where I'd applied the perfume that morning. His touch was gentle, reverent. Where did your grandmother really get this? I told you. I don't know. She gave it to me right before she died. Said it was special. Said I should save it for important moments. A terrible thought occurred to me. You don't think she was involved in— No. His thumb traced small circles on my pulse point, and I wasn't sure if he realized he was doing it. But someone gave it to her. Someone who had access to something that shouldn't exist. I can show you the bottle. I stopped. It was in my apartment. We'll get you new things, clothes, toiletries, whatever you need. I don't want new things. I want my life back. My voice cracked despite my best efforts. I want to wake up tomorrow and have this all be some terrible nightmare. Something shifted in his expression. The hard edges softened just slightly. I know, and I'm sorry. Sorrier than you can possibly understand. He released my wrist, stepping back. Marco will show you to your room. It's in the east wing. Private, secure. There's a bathroom, a closet with clothes that should fit. If you need anything, I need to not be here. I know, he said again. But here is where you're safest. Here is where you stay alive. He turned toward the staircase, then paused. For what it's worth, Vera, I wish I'd never walked into that gallery tonight. I wish I'd taken a different route, gone to a different meeting, been anywhere but there. His eyes met mine one last time. Because you deserve better than to be pulled into my war. Then he was gone, disappearing into the shadows of his fortress, leaving me alone with Marco and the devastating realization that my life as I knew it was over. The room Marco led me to was bigger than my entire apartment had been. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked, manicured gardens that disappeared into darkness. A 4-poster bed dominated the space, dressed in silk sheets that probably cost more than my monthly salary. The closet he'd mentioned was actually a walk-in the size of my old bedroom, filled with clothes that were exactly my size. He'd known. Dante had known my measurements, my style, everything. I should have been more disturbed by that. Instead, I was just tired. There's a lock on the door, Marco said from the threshold. But I wouldn't recommend using it. If something happens and we need to get to you quickly, what could possibly happen? I'm in a fortress surrounded by armed men. His expression was grim. The Giovannis have gotten into more secure locations than this. He left me alone with that cheerful thought. I didn't sleep. How could I? Every time I closed my eyes, I saw my apartment burning, saw phantom strangers watching me from shadows, saw Dante's face when he'd touched my wrist. That mixture of pain and something else I couldn't name. Around 3 a.m, I gave up. Pulled on the silk robe I'd found hanging in the bathroom and padded barefoot into the hallway. The house was quieter than I'd expected. Distant voices murmured from somewhere below, the hum of expensive climate control, but otherwise silence I shouldn't have explored. Should have stayed in my room like a good hostage, because that's what I was, really, no matter how nice the cage. But my feet carried me forward anyway, drawn by a light spilling from beneath a door at the end of the corridor. I knocked softly. No answer. I pushed it open. It was a study. All dark wood and leather and floor-to-ceiling bookshelves that held what looked like first editions. A desk sat before the windows, papers scattered across its surface. And slumped in the chair behind it, head in his hands, was Dante. He hadn't heard me enter. I couldn't sleep either, I said quietly. His head snapped up, and for just a second, I saw something raw and broken in his expression before the mask slammed back into place. You should be resting. Should be, yes, but apparently almost dying makes sleep difficult. Who knew? I stepped further into the room, drawn by something I didn't understand. Maybe it was the exhaustion in his eyes. Maybe it was the half-empty bottle of whiskey on his desk. Maybe it was just that I was tired of being afraid. What are you doing? Working. At 3 a.m? I don't sleep much anymore. He leaned back in his chair, studying me with those dark, intelligent eyes. Not since Isabel. I shouldn't have asked. It was none of my business. But the words came anyway. What was she like? Pain flashed across his face, quick and devastating. Why do you want to know? Because you've pulled me into your world, into your war. Because I smell like her. I think I deserve to know who I'm a ghost of. He was quiet for so long I thought he wouldn't answer. Then he reached into his desk drawer and pulled out a photograph. Slid it across the polished wood toward me. I picked it up with trembling fingers. She was beautiful. Dark hair, warm smile, eyes that sparkled with life and mischief. She stood on a beach somewhere, the wind catching her sundress, looking at whoever held the camera, at Dante, like he hung the moon. She was kind, he said, his voice rough. Too kind for someone like me. She volunteered at hospitals, fostered rescue dogs, cried at sad movies. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. She knew what I was, what I did, but she saw something in me worth loving anyway. How did you meet? She rear-ended my car at a red light. The smile grew slightly. Apologized so profusely I couldn't even be angry. Asked her to dinner to make up for it. She said yes, and that was it. 2 years later, we were married. His expression darkened. 3 years after that, she was dead. I set the photo down carefully, like it might shatter. I'm sorry. Everyone's sorry. He reached for the whiskey, poured 2 fingers into a glass. But sorry doesn't bring her back. Sorry doesn't make the Giovannis pay for what they took from me. Is that what this is about? Revenge? Justice, he corrected. There's a difference, is there? I moved closer to the desk, emboldened by his openness, by the vulnerability he was showing me at 3 a.m. in a house full of men who thought he was invincible. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like revenge. It looks like you're so consumed by destroying the people who hurt you that you've forgotten how to be anything else. His eyes flashed dangerously. You don't know anything about me. No, I don't, but I know what grief looks like. I know what it does to people when they let it eat them alive. I thought of the year after my parents died, the darkness I'd fallen into, and I know that wherever Isabel is, she wouldn't want this version of you. Don't. The word came out sharp as a blade. Don't presume to know what she'd want. You're right. I don't know. I held his stare, refusing to back down even though every survival instinct screamed at me to run. But I know she loved you. I can see it in that photograph, and people who love like that don't want the person they left behind to turn into something hollow. He stood abruptly, the chair scraping against hardwood, moved around the desk toward me, and I should have stepped back. Should have put space between us. But I held my ground. He stopped inches away, close enough that I could smell whiskey and cedar and fury. You've been in my world for 6 hours. Vera, don't pretend you understand it. Then help me understand. Something shifted in his expression. The anger drained away, leaving only exhaustion and a loneliness so profound it made my chest ache. I can't, he whispered. Then alarms shattered the silence, and all hell broke loose. The alarms were deafening. Dante's hand closed around my wrist before I could process what was happening. He pulled me toward the door, his entire body transformed from exhausted man to lethal predator in a heartbeat. Stay behind me, he commanded, pulling a gun from somewhere I hadn't seen. Don't make a sound. My heart hammered against my ribs as he moved into the hallway, gun raised, every muscle coiled and ready. The lights had gone red. Emergency lighting that painted everything in shades of blood and shadow. Marco appeared at the end of the corridor, weapon drawn, expression grim. East perimeter. 3 vehicles. At least 8 men. The Giovannis? Dante's voice was ice. Who else? Gunfire erupted from somewhere below. The sound made me flinch. made everything inside me scream to run, hide, disappear. But Dante's grip on my wrist was iron, anchoring me to his side. "Get her to the safe room," he ordered Marco. "No." The word left my mouth before I could stop it. Both men turned to stare at me like I'd lost my mind. Maybe I had. "If they're here for me," I started. "They're here to send a message," Dante cut me off. "You're just the excuse. Now move." More gunfire. Closer this time, shouting in Italian. The sound of breaking glass. Marco grabbed my other arm, trying to pull me away from Dante. But something in me rebelled. Something primal and furious that was tired of being a victim. Tired of being protected. Tired of being the reason people died. "Let me go to them," I said desperately. "Let me tell them I'm nobody to you. That you were just—" Dante spun on me, and the fury in his eyes stole my breath. "You think they'll believe that? You think they'll just let you walk away after burning down your apartment?" He released my wrist only to cup my face with both hands, forcing me to meet his gaze. "They'll torture you for information you don't have. They'll use you to draw me out. And then they'll kill you anyway because that's what they do. Then what's the point?" My voice cracked. "If I'm dead either way, you're not dead." His thumbs brushed my cheekbones, the gesture absurdly gentle given the chaos erupting around us. "I won't let you be dead. Do you understand me?" I didn't get a chance to answer. An explosion rocked the house. The floor beneath us shuddered. Dante's arms came around me, pulling me against his chest as plaster rained from the ceiling. "Safe room. Now!" he snarled at Marco. This time I didn't fight. Marco dragged me down a different corridor while Dante disappeared in the opposite direction, toward the gunfire, toward the danger. My last glimpse of him was his back, shoulders squared, gun raised, walking into hell like it was just another Tuesday. The safe room was hidden behind a bookshelf that Marco opened with some trick I didn't see. Steel walls, monitors showing different angles of the estate, a weapons cache that made my stomach turn. "Stay here," Marco said, already turning to leave. "Wait." I grabbed his arm. "Is this normal? Do people attack this house often?" His expression was unreadable. "The boss has enemies. They get bold sometimes. Stupid, but bold." "Will he—" I couldn't finish the question. "Mr. Dante doesn't lose." Marco's hand was on the door. He can't afford to. Then I was alone with the monitors and the guns, and the sound of my own ragged breathing. I watched the screens. Watched Dante move through his house like a force of nature, taking down attackers with brutal efficiency. Watched his men form defensive positions. Watched the Giovannis, because that's who they had to be, push forward with reckless aggression. This was his world. Violence and strategy, and split-second decisions between life and death, and I was the catalyst for tonight's bloodshed. The monitors showed the main entrance. A man I didn't recognize, older, silver-haired, expensive suit, stood surrounded by guards. He was shouting something. The camera had no audio, but I could read his body language. He was looking for something, looking for me. On another screen, Dante appeared, moved into the entrance hall, faced down the silver-haired man with his gun lowered but ready. They were talking. Negotiating, maybe. The silver-haired man gestured wildly. Dante stood perfectly still, a statue carved from rage and control. Then the older man smiled, said something that made Dante's entire body go rigid, and I knew somehow that he'd threatened me. What happened next unfolded in seconds, but felt like hours. Dante raised his gun. The older man's guards moved. Gunfire erupted in a coordinated chaos that left 3 men down before they'd fully drawn their weapons, but one got a shot off. I watched Dante's body jerk, watched him press a hand to his side, watched blood seep between his fingers. My scream caught in my throat. He didn't go down. Didn't even slow down. Just kept moving forward, kept firing, until the silver-haired man was on his knees with a gun to his head, and the entrance hall was littered with bodies. I couldn't see what Dante said, but I saw the older man's face drain of color. Saw him nod frantically. Saw Dante signal to his men. The attack was over, but Dante was bleeding. I was out of the safe room before conscious thought caught up with instinct. Racing through corridors I didn't know, following the trail of my own panic until I burst into the entrance hall. Dante stood among the carnage, still on his feet, hand pressed to his side. His shirt was soaked with blood. His face was pale. His eyes found mine across the bodies and the broken glass and the smoke. "I told you to stay in the safe room," he said, and his voice was steady even as he swayed slightly. "You're bleeding. I've bled before. Dante." He took one step toward me, then another. Made it 3 feet before his legs gave out. I caught him as he fell, my hands coming away red with his blood. And all I could think was, not him too. Please God, not him too. He was heavier than I expected. I went down with him, our bodies hitting the marble floor hard enough to bruise. His blood was hot against my hands, soaking through the silk robe, spreading like a stain I'd never wash out. "Dante, stay with me." My voice sounded foreign to my own ears, high and panicked and nothing like the calm I was trying to project. "Marco, someone help!" "I'm fine." He tried to push himself up, failed, and cursed in Italian. "It's just a graze." "That's not a graze. That's... God, there's so much blood." Marco appeared with 2 other men. They moved with practiced efficiency, lifting Dante like he weighed nothing, carrying him toward the stairs. I followed on shaking legs, my hands still red, still warm with him. They took him to a room on the 2nd floor that I realized was his bedroom. Massive bed, dark furniture, windows overlooking the gardens, but I barely registered any of it because they were laying him down, cutting away his shirt and the wound. The bullet had carved a path across his ribs. Deep enough that I could see, I turned away, bile rising in my throat. "Out," Marco said firmly. "Let the doctor work. Doctor? He's 2 minutes away. But you need to leave." "No." The word came out stronger than I felt. I turned back, forced myself to look at Dante's face instead of the wound. His eyes were closed, jaw clenched against pain he wouldn't voice. "I'm staying." "Miss Mitchell, she stays." Dante's voice was strained but absolute. His eyes opened, finding mine. "She stays." Marco didn't argue. The doctor arrived with a medical bag and no questions. He was young, efficient, and clearly accustomed to treating gunshot wounds in the middle of the night. He cleaned the wound while Dante gripped the bedsheets hard enough to turn his knuckles white. I stood at the head of the bed, useless and terrified. Without thinking, I reached for his hand. His fingers closed around mine immediately, squeezed hard enough to hurt. "Talk to me," he gritted out as the doctor began stitching. "Distract me." What do you want me to say?" "Anything. Tell me about the gallery. Tell me why you wanted to work with art." My mind scrambled for words that felt impossibly far away. "My mother," I heard myself say. "She was a painter. Not successful or anything, just it made her happy. After she died, I couldn't paint anymore. Couldn't even pick up a brush without feeling like I was drowning. But I could still look at art. Could still be near it." His grip tightened. "What did she paint?" "Landscapes, mostly. Places she'd never been. Paris, Tuscany, Santorini." The memories hurt less than they used to. She'd paint these places and tell me stories about them. Said one day we'd visit them together. "Did you?" "No. She died before we could." The doctor worked silently, needle and thread pulling skin together. Dante's breathing was controlled, measured, but I could feel the pain radiating through his grip. "Where would you go?" he asked. "If you could visit anywhere?" "Why are you asking me this?" "Because," he hissed as the doctor hit a particularly sensitive spot. "Because your voice is the only thing keeping me from putting a bullet in this doctor for causing me pain." The doctor didn't even flinch. Clearly he'd heard worse. "Vienna," I said. "The Kunsthistorisches Museum. I've wanted to see it since I was 12. "Why Vienna?" "Because my mother always said the way they display Bruegel's paintings is like stepping into another century. Like time travel through art." His eyes were still on me, dark and intense despite the pain. "I'll take you there." "What?" "When this is over. When the Giovannis are buried and you're safe. I'll take you to Vienna." "Dante, you don't have to." "I want to." His thumb traced circles on the back of my hand, and I wasn't sure if he realized he was doing it. "I want to see your face when you walk into that museum for the first time. I want to watch you look at art the way you looked at that Rothko in the gallery, like it was the only real thing in the world." My throat tightened. "You barely know me." "I know enough." The doctor tied off the last stitch and began bandaging the wound. "You're lucky," he said to Dante. 2 inches to the left and we'd be having a very different conversation. "No strenuous activity for at least 2 weeks. Keep the wound clean. I'll be back tomorrow to check on it." He packed his supplies and left with Marco, leaving us alone in the pre-dawn quiet. Dante still hadn't released my hand. "You should have stayed in the safe room," he said. "Finally, you were bleeding. I've bled before." "So you said?" I looked down at our joined hands, at the blood, his blood drying on my skin. "Why does it matter?" "Why do I matter to you? We're strangers, are we?" His free hand came up to touch my face, his thumb brushing my cheek with devastating gentleness. "Because it doesn't feel that way. It hasn't felt that way since the moment I saw you in that gallery. That's just the perfume, the grief. I remind you of— No." The word was absolute. "You're nothing like Isabel." She was sunlight and softness. "You're—" He paused, searching for words. "You're steel wrapped in silk. You're every sharp edge I didn't know I needed. And yes, maybe the perfume drew me to you first. But that's not why I'm still here, holding your hand, telling you about Vienna. Then why?" He pulled me closer until our faces were inches apart, until I could see flecks of gold in his dark eyes and count the individual stitches the doctor had just placed. "Because when I fell tonight, the only thing I could think was that I couldn't die before I figured out what this is between us." His breath ghosted across my lips. "And I always finish what I start, Vera." "This is insane," I whispered. "Yes," he agreed. Then he kissed me, and the world fell away. His lips were gentle despite everything he was, despite the violence I'd just witnessed, despite the blood still drying on both our hands. The kiss was a question more than a demand, asking permission I didn't know how to give but couldn't deny. I kissed him back. "God help me." I kissed him back. My free hand found his jaw, careful to avoid the bandages wrapping his torso. He tasted like whiskey and something darker, something that should have terrified me, but instead made me lean closer. He broke away first, resting his forehead against mine. His breathing was unsteady, whether from pain or something else, I couldn't tell. "I shouldn't have done that," he murmured. "No," I agreed. "You shouldn't have. You should leave, go back to your room. Forget this happened." "Should I forget the attack too? The men you killed? The way you took a bullet and kept fighting?" His eyes opened, meeting mine. "That's who I am, Vera. That's the world you're in now. Blood and bullets and bodies in the entrance hall. This isn't some romance where the dangerous man becomes good for the right woman. I'm not good. I won't ever be good. I'm not asking you to be." Something flickered in his expression. Surprise, maybe. Or fear. "You don't know what you're saying." "Don't I?" I pulled back slightly, needing space to think, to breathe. "You think I don't understand what I saw tonight? You think I'm naive, enough to believe you're anything other than exactly what you are? Then what am I? A man consumed by revenge who's convinced himself it's justice. A man who builds fortresses and surrounds himself with armed guards because he's terrified of losing someone else. A man who kisses like he's drowning and I'm air." I stood, my legs still unsteady. "But you're also the man who warned me in that gallery, who sent Marco to save me, who took a bullet tonight and the first thing you thought about was whether I was safe. That doesn't make me good." "No," I agreed, "but it makes you human." He looked away, jaw tight. "You should still leave." "Why?" "Because you're afraid of what happens if I stay?" Yes, the admission seemed torn from him. "Because everyone I love dies, Vera. Everyone I try to protect ends up destroyed. Isabel was supposed to be safe. I gave her guards, security, every protection I could buy. And they still got to her. They still burned her alive while I was across the city in a meeting that didn't fucking matter." The raw agony in his voice cracked something in my chest. "That wasn't your fault. It was my world. My enemies. my war that she paid for. He finally looked at me again, and his eyes were devastated. And now you're here, in that same world, wearing that same perfume, and I can't... He stopped, his hands fisting in the sheets. I can't do this again. I can't watch someone else burn because of me. I moved back to the bed, sitting carefully on the edge. Then let me go. Tell the Giovannis I mean nothing to you. End this. I can't do that either. Why not? Because it would be a lie. His hand found mine again, fingers threading through mine like he was afraid I'd disappear. Because the moment I saw you, something shifted. Something I thought died with Isabel woke up, and I'm selfish enough, broken enough to want to hold on to that feeling even though it might destroy you. What if I'm willing to take that risk? You don't understand what you're risking. Then tell me. I squeezed his hand. No more half-truths. No more protection. Tell me everything. Tell me who the Giovannis really are. Tell me why they killed Isabel. Tell me what you're planning and what happens when this war of yours finally ends. He studied me for a long moment, and I could see the war playing out behind his eyes. The desire to protect me warring with something else. Maybe respect, maybe trust, maybe just exhaustion from carrying secrets alone. The Giovannis control half the city, he said finally. Drugs, weapons, human trafficking. Things that make what I do look like charity work. My family, the Morettis, we have rules. Lines we don't cross. The Giovannis have no such limitations. And Isabel? She found out about one of their operations, a trafficking ring running through the port. She wanted to go to the FBI, thought she could do it anonymously. His voice went hollow. They found out, made an example of her, burned. Our house to the ground with her inside as a message that no one touches Giovanni business and lives. The horror of it settled over me like a weight. I'm so sorry. I've spent 2 years dismantling everything they built. Every operation, every alliance, every stream of revenue. I've taken it all apart piece by piece. And now I'm close to the head of the snake, Antonio Giovanni himself. The man who gave the order to kill her. The silver-haired man from tonight. Yes. Something cold and lethal crossed his face. He came here to negotiate, to offer a truce in exchange for you. He thinks you're important to me. Thinks he can use you as leverage. My blood ran cold. What did you tell him? That if he ever speaks your name again, I'll kill everyone he's ever loved in front of him before I let him bleed out slowly. The casual brutality of it should have terrified me. Instead, I felt something else, something dark and primal that recognized the promise of protection in his threat. And what happens when you finally kill him? I asked. When this war is over and the Giovannis are gone? His eyes met mine, and in them I saw a future I didn't understand, but felt pulled toward anyway. That depends on you, Vera. That depends on whether you're still here when the smoke clears. Dawn light was breaking through the windows, painting everything in shades of gold and shadow. I'm still here now, I whispered. His grip on my hand tightened. Then stay, just for today, just until I know you're real. So I stayed. I fell asleep in the chair beside his bed. Didn't mean to. But exhaustion finally caught up with me somewhere around dawn, and when I woke, afternoon sun was streaming through the windows, and Dante was watching me with an expression I couldn't read. You're still here, he said softly. You asked me to stay. I didn't think you would. He'd propped himself up slightly against the pillows, the bandages stark white against his tan skin. Most people run when they see what I really am. I don't have anywhere to run to. I stretched, my neck protesting the awkward angle I'd slept in. My apartment's destroyed. My life's in ashes. And apparently there's a Mafia family that wants to use me as leverage. So yes, I'm still here. Not like I have much choice. Something flickered in his eyes. Disappointment, maybe. That's the only reason? Before I could answer, Marco knocked and entered without waiting for permission. His expression was grim. We have a problem. Dante's entire demeanor shifted, the vulnerable man from this morning disappearing behind the cold mask of the boss. What kind of problem? Giovanni's men took Luca. I watched Dante's jaw clench. Watched, his hands fist in the sheets despite the pain it must have caused. When? An hour ago. Ambushed him on his way back from the port. Marco's eyes flicked to me, then back to Dante. They're saying it's a trade. Luca for the girl. The girl. Me. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. No, Dante said flatly. Boss, Luca has a family. 2 kids. If we don't... I said no. Dante's voice was ice and iron. We don't negotiate with the Giovannis. We never negotiate with the Giovannis. You know this. He's been with you for 8 years. He took a bullet for you in the warehouse raid. His kids call you uncle. Marco's voice was strained, pleading. We can't just let him die. We can and we will if the alternative is giving them Vera. I stood abruptly, my chair scraping against hardwood. Stop talking about me like I'm not here. Both men turned to look at me. This man, Luca, he has children? I asked Marco. 2 girls, 6 and 9. My stomach twisted. I thought of being 16, of learning my parents were dead, of the hole that had torn through my world. And if he dies, they grow up without a father. Vera, don't! Dante's voice held a warning. Don't what? Don't have empathy? Don't care that a man with a family is going to be killed because of me? I moved to the foot of his bed, met his hard stare with my own. You said I was in your world now. You said I should understand what that means. Well, I'm starting to understand, and I don't like it. You think I like it? He tried to sit up further, winced, and cursed. You think I want to choose between my men and... He stopped himself. And what? And me, a woman you met 3 days ago? I wrapped my arms around myself, suddenly cold. A man you've known for 8 years? Or someone who's only here because of a coincidence of perfume? It's not about how long I've known you. Then what is it about? It's about the fact that if I give you to them, you die. They'll torture you for information you don't have. And when they're done, they'll kill you to hurt me. That's not a choice. That's not negotiable. What if I choose to go? The silence that followed was deafening. No, Dante said finally. You don't own me. You can't keep me here against my will. Watch me. The cold finality in his voice should have scared me. Instead, it made me angry. So I'm a prisoner now? Is that what this is? All your pretty words about Vienna and wanting to know what's between us? That was just manipulation to keep me compliant? He flinched like I'd slapped him. That's not fair. None of this is fair. My voice cracked. None of this is fair to me or to Luca or to his children. But at least I can do something about it. At least I can make a choice that saves someone. A choice that kills you. You don't know that. Yes, I do. He pushed himself up despite the obvious pain, swung his legs over the side of the bed. Marco moved to help him, but Dante waved him off. I know exactly what Antonio Giovanni does to people. I've seen the bodies. I've identified what was left of them. And I will not... His voice broke slightly. I will not let that happen to you. Even if it means Luca's daughters lose their father. Even then. He stood, swaying slightly, and I hated how pale he looked, how much this was costing him. I've made my choice, Vera. I chose you the moment I walked into that gallery. I chose you when I sent Marco to save you. I chose you when I took that bullet last night. And I'm choosing you now, even if you hate me for it. Tears burned behind my eyes. I don't want to be responsible for someone's death. Then don't be. He took a step toward me, and another, closing the distance between us. Don't go to them. Don't sacrifice yourself for a man you've never met. Stay here, stay alive. Let me find another way to save Luca. Is there another way? His silence was answer enough. I looked at Marco, who stood by the door with an expression that said he'd seen this play out before. Seen Dante choose between impossible options and live with the consequences. How long do we have? I asked. They want an answer by midnight, Marco said quietly. 6 hours. 6 hours to decide if I was the kind of person who could live with myself knowing I'd let a father die. 6 hours to decide if Dante's protection was worth the cost of someone else's life. 6 hours to figure out who I really was. I need to think, I said. Dante's hand caught mine. Vera, alone. I need to think alone. I pulled free and walked out, leaving him standing there bleeding and broken and desperate, leaving him without an answer he could accept. I went to the gardens. Needed air. Needed space. Needed something other than the suffocating weight of an impossible decision pressing down on my chest. The estate grounds were beautiful in the fading afternoon light. Manicured hedges, stone pathways, a fountain that probably cost more than most houses, all of it built on blood and violence and choices exactly like the one I was facing now. I sat on a bench near the fountain and let myself cry. For my parents. For my burned apartment. For the normal life I'd never get back. For Luca's daughters who might lose their father because of me. For Dante, who'd looked at me like I was both his salvation and his destruction. He won't let you do it, you know. I looked up to find an older woman standing on the path. She wore a simple black dress, her silver hair pulled back in an elegant bun. Kind eyes, sad smile. I'm sorry, I'm Teresa. I manage the household staff. She sat beside me without invitation. I've worked for the Moretti family for 30 years. Watched Dante grow from a boy into what he is now. Did you know Isabel? I did. Her smile turned bittersweet. She was lovely, too good for this world. She tried so hard to see the best in everyone, even when the worst was staring her in the face. He loved her very much. He did, and it destroyed him when she died. Teresa's hand found mine, warm and steady. He's not been the same since. Colder, harder, more willing to burn the world down to get what he wants. But she studied my face. You've cracked something in him. Something I thought was dead. I don't understand what you want me to say. I want you to understand what you mean to him, and what he'll do to keep you safe. She squeezed my hand. He'll let Luca die. He'll let a dozen men die. He'll let this entire estate burn to the ground before he lets Antonio Giovanni take you. That's not negotiable. That's not changeable. That's simply who Dante is. That's not fair to Luca. No, she agreed. But fairness died in this world a long time ago. Now there's only survival. Only choices between terrible options. Only living with the consequences. How do you live with it? I asked desperately. How do you work here? Knowing what he does, what he's capable of. Because I also know what he's capable of protecting. What he's capable of loving. Teresa stood, smoothing her dress. Isabel made her choice to be with him knowing the risks. Luca made his choice to work for him knowing the risks. Now you have to make yours, Vera, but make it for yourself. Not for guilt, not for some man you've never met. Make it because it's what you want. She left me alone with the fountain and the dying light, and a clarity I didn't want, because I knew what I wanted. God help me. I knew. I found Dante in his study, standing at the windows despite the doctor's orders. His back was to me, shoulders tense, one hand pressed against his bandaged ribs. You should be resting, I said from the doorway. I'll rest when you're safe. He didn't turn around. Have you made your decision? Yes, I watched his entire body go rigid, watched him brace himself for words that would break him. I'm staying. He spun around so fast it had to hurt. What? I'm staying. I'm not going to the Giovanni's. I'm not sacrificing myself. The words felt like both liberation and damnation. I'm choosing to stay here. With you. The relief that flooded his face was so profound it made my chest ache. Vera, but you have to promise me something. I moved into the room, each step feeling momentous. You have to promise me you'll do everything possible to save Luca, that you'll find another way, that you'll try. I will. I swear to you, I will. He closed the distance between us, his hands framing my face like I was something precious. But why? Why did you choose to stay? Because Teresa was right. Everyone in your world makes their choices knowing the risks. Luca chose this life. I didn't. But I'm choosing it now. I met his eyes. Let him see the truth in mine. I'm choosing you, not because I'm trapped or because I have nowhere else to go, but because in 3 days, you've made me feel more alive than I have in years. Because when you kissed me this morning, I finally understood what my mother meant when she talked about art. About finding something so beautiful and terrible that it changes you forever. His thumb traced my bottom lip. I'm not beautiful. Yes, you are. You're beautiful and brutal and broken, and I should run as far from you as possible. I turned my face into his palm. But I'm not going to. I'm going to stay right here and see where this impossible thing between us leads. It might lead nowhere good. I know. It might destroy us both. I know that too. He kissed me then. And this time there was no gentleness. This time it was desperation and relief and claim all wrapped into one. His hands tangled in my hair, pulling me closer despite his injuries. I wrapped my arms around his neck carefully, trying not to hurt him, trying not to break this moment. When we finally broke apart, we were both breathing hard. I need to make some calls, he said, his forehead resting against mine. If I'm going to save Luca, I need to move fast. But after, his eyes burned into mine, after you and I are going to talk about what this means. What you staying means. I'm not going anywhere. Promise me. I promise. He kissed me once more, soft and devastating. Then he pulled away, moving to his desk with renewed purpose. I watched him work, making calls, issuing orders, orchestrating whatever plan he was, building to save his man without losing me. And I realized with startling clarity that I'd just chosen. My side in a war I didn't understand, chosen. Him. Chosen this. Chosen a future that would either save us both or consume us entirely. The plan was insane, but then again, everything about the last 3 days had been insane. I sat in Dante's study while he explained it. Marco and 3 other men I'd been introduced to, Leo, Vincent, and the injured man's brother, Carlo, standing around the desk like generals planning a war. We hit them during the exchange, Dante was saying, his finger tracing routes on a map of the warehouse district. They'll expect us to come from the east, so we come from the water. 3 boats, silent approach. Vincent's team creates a diversion here. He tapped a spot on the map. While Marco's team extracts Luca from here. And Giovanni? Carlo's voice was tight with barely controlled rage. Mine. Dante's eyes were cold. Antonio Giovanni is mine. This is a suicide mission, Leo said flatly. Even if we get Luca out, they'll have 50 men there. We'll be outnumbered 5-1. Then we'd better be 5 times as good. Dante looked up, his gaze moving to each man in turn. I won't order anyone to come. This is volunteer only. Walk away now, and there's no judgment. No one moved. For Luca, Vincent said quietly. For Luca, the others echoed. I watched them file out, these men who were willing to die for one of their own, and felt something shift inside me. This wasn't just a criminal organization. This was a family, twisted and violent and broken, but a family nonetheless. When we were alone, Dante turned to me. I need you to stay here. Lock yourself in the safe room and don't come out until Marco comes for you. No. His jaw tightened. Vera, I'm coming with you. Absolutely not. You said I was part of your world now. You said I'd chosen this. I moved around the desk to face him. So let me be part of it. Let me help. Help how? This isn't some adventure. People are going to die tonight. Probably a lot of people. I know, but I'm also a distraction you can use. I'd been thinking about this since he started planning. Giovanni wants me, right? So let him see me. Let him think he's getting what he wants while your men get Luca out. You want to use yourself as bait. Yes. No. The word was absolute. I won't risk you like that. You're risking everyone else. Everyone else chose this life. You didn't. I chose you. I grabbed his shirt, careful of his wounds, and pulled him down until we were eye to eye. I chose you, Dante. And that means I don't get to hide in safe rooms while you risk your life. That means I stand with you, even when it's terrifying, even when it might end badly. Something in his expression cracked. If something happens to you, it won't, because you'll be there. Because you'll protect me the way you protected me at the gallery, and in this house, and every moment since. I kissed him softly. Trust me. Trust that I can do this. He was quiet for a long moment, his hands coming up to cup my face. "You're going to be the death of me, Vera Mitchell." "Not tonight," I promised. "Tonight, we both survive." The warehouse district was exactly as ominous as I'd imagined. Abandoned buildings, broken streetlights, the smell of salt water and decay. I sat in the back of Dante's SUV, wearing a bulletproof vest that felt absurdly heavy, my heart hammering against my ribs. Dante sat beside me, gun checked and ready, his expression carved from stone. But his hand found mine in the darkness, fingers threading through mine. "Last chance to change your mind," he said quietly. "Not a chance." His grip tightened. "When we get there, you stay in the car until I signal. Then you walk to the center of the lot, visible but not close enough for them to grab you easily. You don't speak, you don't move. You just stand there and let them see you. The moment Luca is clear, you run back to the car. Understand?" "I understand. And Vera?" He turned to face me, and in the dim light I could see fear beneath the cold control. "If something goes wrong, if they get past me somehow, you run, you don't look back. You don't try to help. You just run, and you keep running until Marco finds you. Nothing's going to go wrong. Promise me anyway." "I promise." He kissed me then, and it tasted like goodbye and forever all at once. Then Marco was at the window, signaling. "Time to move." Everything happened fast. I stepped out of the SUV into the harsh glare of floodlights. Antonio Giovanni stood 50 feet away, surrounded by his men, Luca bound and bleeding at his feet. The silver-haired man smiled when he saw me. "The mystery woman," he called out. "Come closer, dear. Let me see what's worth so much to Dante Moretti." I walked forward on shaking legs, each step feeling like miles. Behind me, I felt rather than saw Dante's men moving into position, heard the soft splash of boats approaching from the water. "That's far enough." Dante's voice cut through the night, sharp and commanding. He stepped into the light beside me, gun raised. "Let Luca go and we'll talk. Talk?" Giovanni laughed. "I don't want to talk, Moretti. I want to watch you bleed the way I've bled. I want you to know what it feels like to lose everything." "You want revenge for your sons? For your operations I've destroyed?" Dante's voice was ice. "Then take it. Face me, not her. Not Luca. Me." The challenge hung in the air. Giovanni's smile turned feral. "You think you can beat me, boy? I've been killing men since before you were born. Then prove it. One-on-one. You and me. Winner takes everything." I watched Giovanni consider it. Watched his pride war with his caution. Watched him make the fatal mistake of underestimating the man beside me. "Deal," Giovanni said, and all hell broke loose. Gunfire erupted from 3 directions at once. Dante shoved me toward Marco, who appeared from nowhere and pulled me back toward the SUV. I saw Vincent's team moving on Luca, saw Carlo providing cover. Fire! Saw Dante walk straight toward Giovanni through the chaos like an avenging angel. The last thing I saw before Marco pushed me into the car was Dante and Giovanni, facing each other in the center of the lot. 2 predators finally meeting. Then Marco was driving, and the warehouse was disappearing behind us, and all I could do was pray. The waiting was agony. I sat in the safe room at the estate, Teresa beside me, both of us silent. Waiting for word, waiting to know if the men who'd left would come back, waiting to know if Dante had survived. Hours passed. Dawn broke. Still nothing, then footsteps in the hallway. The door opening. Marco stood there, blood spattered but alive, and behind him, Dante, battered, bruised, but alive. I ran to him, and his arms came around me, and for the first time in 3 days, I could breathe. "It's over," he whispered into my hair. "Giovanni's dead. Luca's safe. It's over." I pulled back to look at his face, searching for the truth. "And now?" His thumb brushed my cheek. "Now I keep my promise. When you're ready, we go to Vienna. We see that museum you've dreamed about. We figure out what this is between us without guns and threats and blood. And if I'm never ready, if I can't separate you from all of this, then we figure it out here, together, in this beautiful, terrible world we've chosen." I kissed him then, tasting copper and smoke and something that felt impossibly like hope. "Together," I agreed. and as the sun rose over the estate, painting everything in shades of gold, I realized that my old life, the gallery, the apartment, the safety of being nobody, was truly gone. But standing in Dante's arms, I couldn't bring myself to mourn it, because I'd found something my mother had painted about but never found. Something worth burning the old world down for. Something that felt terrifyingly, impossibly like love. He'd called me the scent of ghosts. But I'd become something else entirely. The woman who chose the monster and found the man beneath. The woman who walked into fire and came out forged in steel. The woman who learned that sometimes the most dangerous choice is the only one worth making.